Hello, welcome to demonstration on how you can create pivot tables in Excel. We'll be using a data set for a nonprofit organization where they have a list of pledges from their donors. Right, so this is the data file we'll actually be using. But it's very helpful to kind of understand the working definition of what a pivot table is. So a pivot table can actually be generated in Excel, and it is a very powerful data analysis tool that can actually be used to summarize and analyze large amounts of data. Right, so even though the data we have here is not a large amount, but it will be, a pivot table will be able to help you understand how you can actually summarize this data. Because just a list of data is meaningless until it's actually summarized and until it's actually filtered so that you can get out only the information that you need. So the general use of a pivot table enables you to summarize the data, rearrange the data, group and categorize the data, filter and drill down the data that you're actually looking for, and you can also create calculated fields. You can you can actually create a summary or a pivot table that is much more dynamic. What it means is that if you go to the list of data and make a change, the table will automatically change, right? So it's going to be so dynamic in that particular regard. And it gives a very good visual experience for when actually looking at data or analyzing data. Right, so I'll just demonstrate just a quick way of actually creating a pivot table. So what you need to do is you go to Insert, and under Insert you'll see there is a tables group here. Now, for many, they may say, well, I have no idea how a pivot table is actually going to look like. No problem, there are actually some recommended pivot tables that will actually look at the data that is before you and make some suggestions to you. So, for example, I can click on this here and it will actually show me recommended pivot tables. So you're just looking at this data, say, okay, how do you want to analyze your data? How do you want to summarize your data? Do you want to summarize it by the sum amount of pledges or by some amount of amount received, right? So it's kind of making suggestions. There are many more down here, right? So every time you click on any one of them, it's actually promoted here so that you can have a much closer visual experience, right? So you can see sum of amount received by fund name, right? So it's actually showing you what it will actually look like. And you can actually scroll down, there's more, right? Okay. So if for any reason you find exactly what you're looking for from here, then you can just select that one and that becomes your pivot table. But there are situations where you may want a much more customized pivot table where you feel like any of these do not quite meet the requirement or the question that you're actually asking, right? So what you can do is you can either cancel this and then go to pivot table here, or you can actually use blank pivot table. But anyway, in this particular case, let's just cancel this one here, get this out of the way. We don't need any suggestions, so we are going to go to pivot table. And then from here, we click on from table or range, right, which is, it will automatically select the range of the data that's actually before you, right? And then it will say, well, where do you want the pivot table to be located? So it makes sense to put it on a new worksheet, right? So it defaults to that. So you just go ahead and say, okay, right. Once you've done that, okay. If for any reason, like what is actually happening here, you don't see the field list, because you need to see the field list so that you can actually select from that. So you can see it's not automatically selected, but by default, normally it will be selected right away. So it will actually show up here, right? So this was a little bit of a glitch that is likely to happen. Again, don't get confused by that. And all you have to do is just, I want to see the list of the fields. So once you have this here, okay, just for demonstration purposes, let's say I want a report, a summary by donor name. So I click on the donor name. Once you click on it, you can see here, it shows up, right? It gives you that is actually going to generate a report summarizing by donor name. And now beyond that, well, maybe I want the amount pledged, right? And automatically comes here, just putting a check mark on it, amount received and amount owed, right? So that's about a very simple report that I want to have here. Now, once I have this here, I have the ability to generate a variety of reports by actually using a filter. You see, in here you can see it says filters. So I can say, well, I want to be able to generate a variety of reports where I filter by donor type. So what I do is I hover my pointer on donor type, hold it down and drag it into the filter, and then here it becomes donor type, becomes my filter. So I can click on this here, I can say, okay, just generate a report for individual donor types. So I click on that and say, okay, you can see it has actually generated that one. And I can go back to that filter and say, no, I want by organization, okay? And then of course, it actually generates that for me, right? Okay, otherwise I want to show all, in other words, I want to remove the filter, right? So that gives me that. Now, if for some reason you say, okay, no, it's not by donor type that I want to do my filter, you can take away that donor type back there, and then maybe say, well, by fund name is what I want. So you can hover your point on that, use now fund name as a filter. And before you know it, you're actually able to select it, just bed sanctuary only. Okay, you can see generates that report for you. You can go ahead for general support. Okay, works for you, right? Okay, so you can see how cool a pivot table can actually be. You know, it gives you a lot of functionality. It gives you a lot of ways of summarizing the data in a way that you want. And then, of course, for any reason, if you wanted to format these numbers here, you can see here where it says sum of amount pledged. You can just click on that and gives you a list of options, and you want to go to value field settings. And in here, for example, instead of having the total sums, you could actually use by count, you can use by average, maximum, minimum. So there are many other things that you can actually do here. But sum looks about right because we just want to see the total, right? But then of course we may want to format the values so that they look like currency. So you go to show value as, and then under that you can see it does show you that there is a number format. And then I can select currency. Maybe I don't want any decimal. Okay. And then okay. You can see this is now formatted. I do the same for the amount received, right? Value settings. And I want show number format. And I want it to be currency, no decimal. Okay. Okay. And then of course, finally, for the sum of amount owed, I want to do the same thing as well, value field settings, right? So that actually does show you how much flexibility you have actually using a pivot table. Not only are you able to summarize, you're also able to work on a report that's very presentable, and you're actually able to filter and just extract the information that you really want right away, very, very quickly. Let's say, for example, you're running late for a meeting and you just wanted to have different views of the same information in a summarized format. You can create this very, very quickly. And even while you're still in that particular meeting, and you've got a file with you, someone may say, well, what about if you're going to generate the reports instead of by fund name, right? We can put the fund name back here. What about by pledge date, right? And you can actually use the pledge date as a filter. And once again, you are actually able to generate the report that you want and so forth. All right. Otherwise, that's all I wanted to demonstrate for you here so that you can begin to take an interest in using pivot tables in Excel, and just to show how quickly you're actually able to use the function so that you can create very useful reports that can really help you in making decisions. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Again, please like the video, share the video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.